If you're just getting into bass fishing, this is the video for you. Maybe you have some competition, maybe you're just picking up a hobby and you just want to get out there and catch some bass and you don't really know where to start. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you this bait here that you can use, and it's basically a cheat code. When I was younger, I used to go fishing with a worm and bobber, and when I got bit, I was so pumped. I would catch bluegills all the time and all this stuff. I thought it was so much fun. But as time went on, I realized the only thing I was catching was small fish, and I'd get the occasional big fish. And sometimes that fish was a catfish, carp, it was all this different types of stuff. And then, when I started catching a few bass and I realized how fun they were because they fought hard, I got interested in that. And then I started watching some YouTube videos and, saw all these major league anglers fishing for bass, and the rest is history. So I watched a lot of videos and I picked up my first bait caster. So a bait caster looks like this. Different kind of reel. The line is inside of it. You have to use it in a different way than your standard way of fishing. It's kind of an advanced technique, but once you get it down, it's really not that hard to use. And the real cool thing about it is it helps you catch more fish. It's proven. So anyway, I got my first bait caster and I put a worm and bobber on it and I was throwing it out, and I just couldn't understand what the big deal was about these. I tried little crankbaits and stuff, couldn't seem to get it down. I wasn't catching any fish. I was having a really difficult time, trying to fish with it. Then finally one day I went to the store and I saw a pack of worms. And I thought, do these really catch fish? They don't look appealing. I've seen it thrown around on a bunch of YouTube videos where people used them. So I decided to give them a try. And I gotta say, I'm really happy that I did. So there was this guy that I watched. His name was Roland Martin. And I watched his videos and he preached these things, so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. So I followed his steps, kind of did my own modifications to it, and I was giving it a try. So anyway, I went out there and I tried it for the first time, and I was with a buddy and I threw this out, and he like, I didn't even know what I was doing, and he was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" I'm like, "No, not really." And before you know it, I had hooked a fish and I had it in my kayak, and he was just mind blown. I was caught off guard. It was crazy. And then we had went that entire day. He was throwing around a spoon and stuff, and he didn't catch a single thing, and I caught like 10 bass in that one day. I'll tell you what, this is the bait that changed my whole fishing game. So the bait I'm going to introduce to you as a beginner that you have to have is, drum roll please, a Gary Yamamoto Senko. Just like this. They used to come in packs like this. I got a ton of them. They come in a newer style pack. I don't have those yet because I have so many of these. I'm going to try and put it right here. But these guys are insane. You look at it and it's just this little stick bait, and you look at it and you're like, how the heck is that going to catch a fish? But I tell you what it does. It catches them all. So as you can see, the stick bait here, it's got a little egg sac. This one here is my favorite color, courtesy of Roland Martin. This is a 297 Senko green pumpkin with the black flakes. This thing is amazing. The first one I ever picked up. I've caught so many fish with this color, all different clarities, all times of years. I always have one of these with me at all times. The extremely cool thing about these baits is just how versatile they are. So there's two major ways you can fish these baits. The first is a standard Texas rig. So with a Texas rig, it looks like this. This is a weightless Texas rig. I got the hook point buried in there. This one's kind of beat up, but it just sits straight. And so I use a 4/0 EWG Gamakatsu style hook. Yeah, just like that. It looks like that. This is the weightless one. There's no weight on there. It just goes in the water just like that, and it will catch fish. It's crazy. So when you go out fishing and you're using a Senko for the first time, the best way to fish it is weedless and Texas rig, depending on if you got a lot of weeds or not. If you don't have weeds, you can also Texas rig it. It works just as well. You can also use what they call a bullet sinker, and that looks just like that right there. This is a tungsten weight. You can use You can also use one of these lead ones that you get from Walmart for like 96 cents. Really, it doesn't matter which one you use. The tungsten ones are a little bit more expensive and they seem to be a little bit more durable. Um, they are smaller, they're stronger. I feel like you don't snag as much. So if you have a few extra bucks, you can use that. But the lead ones work just as well. They will catch you fish. So what you do is you put the bullet weight on the line and then you tie your hook on and then hook your Senko to it. So if you're fishing in deeper water, that's primarily, what you're going to use it for. You can also put a bobber stop on the end of your line to stop to peg your weight to the front of that Senko, just like one of these guys here. So all you do is you run the line through the bobber stop, push it on, the bobber stop up, you put your weight on, and then you tie your hook on, and then once all that's done, you can pull the peg down to hook the weight directly to the front of the hook. That's more if you're in heavy vegetation or cover. That's going to help from your weight getting stuck in those tough spots, but also you can still get your lure to that depth. You can also what's called wacky rig your Senko. Looks just like this. With the wacky rig, you put it right in the middle of your Senko. So with the wacky rig, it looks just like this. That's what it's going to look like, except, you're going to have water, but it's going to give action on both sides. It's just going to be wiggling all the way down. And, that's going to catch those fish's eyes, and they're going to be attracted to it. They're going to want to eat that. For whatever reason, that little shimmy that it gives, them fish, they cannot resist it. Primarily, you're going to want to use the wacky rig and weedless, closer to shore, shallow water. If you're around a riprap or something like that, you got some trees that have fallen. That wacky rig, you just want it to float slow so it stays in that strike zone. That's the time to use it. So contrary to when you're out using a Texas rig, when you wacky rig, you want to use a little bit different rod and reel. Now, the reel size doesn't matter too much. You want it to at least be able to hold a decent amount of line because bass like to fight and they can sometimes go pretty far. So I use this medium Lew's KVD. That's a medium action. It's got a little bit of bend, but it's got a decent amount of backbone, but not too much where I'm going to rip that hook out. And then on top of it, I have a 2000 series reel, so I got plenty of line in there, to be able to catch those fish. The bait caster that I use, I run medium heavy when I Texas rig. I feel like that's standard for anyone that knows how to Texas rig or does any sort of Texas rigging. You want to have a lot of backbone, but you need some bend so that you can keep that fight and not lose that fish. Medium heavy seems to be the perfect action, for fighting those fish, getting them out of decent cover. It just seems universally used by everyone and it works extremely well, so I can vouch for it. Now, if you're a spinning reel type person, you can also use a medium heavy spinning reel to get that action too. That's something when you Texas rig, I probably wouldn't move too far away from. You might be able to go to a medium. A heavy you probably could, but you're going to lose fish if you go to either or. Either you're going to rip the fish out of their mouth or you're going to let them shake it. I use a longer style rod when I Texas rig. This one is 7'2". And then my spinning rod that I use to wacky rig, that is a 6'9". I feel like the longer the rod, it allows you to cover a little bit more water while still maintaining, that strike zone with your bait. You don't want it to be too long of a rod because you're going to cover too much water too fast and you're going to miss bites. But if you use a rod that's too short, you're going to struggle to stay in that strike zone at times. So how do you work the Texas rig Senko? This is very simple. Pretty much you just got to have it in the water. I've caught bass with it being dead sticked. That means you cast it out, let it sink, and just sit there. I've caught bass when I've thrown it out and reeled it in extremely fast. I have caught bass trolling a Senko, going across the lake, just having it out on the side of my kayak, reeling, and it's just like a stick being pulled through the water, and I've had bass blow it up. It doesn't make any sense. I cannot make any sense of it, but if you are a beginner, this is the bait you gotta use. The typical retrieve that people use when they use a Senko is they cast it out, they let it do its magic on the way down, so it's down, just shaking, giving that action, let it hit the bottom, and then you slowly lift your rod tip up. So you cast it out, you're letting it fall down, and then you slowly lift your rod tip up. You don't want to go too high, so you're probably looking at maybe from right here to right here, so about 35 degrees. You don't want it to point too far high up, because the problem is when you do that, if you get bit, you're not going to have enough force to set the hook in that. You want to leave a little bit of leverage so that you can get the hook in that fish. Now, when I say set the hook, I mean when you feel that thump, you have to go bam, you have to set that hook. It doesn't have to be extremely powerful, but it has to be strong enough to penetrate into the bass's mouth. It should be a rather quick motion, just bam, and you're going to hook the fish. If you do it too hard, it's going to open up a huge hole in their mouth, and there's going to be a higher chance that they shake it. But if you do it too light, there's a chance you won't get a hook in good enough to keep that fish on. So the type of line that I use when I fish a Senko is I use braid to a fluorocarbon leader. Now the size of braid depends on which reel or which rod and reel I'm using. When I use my bait caster, I use 40-pound braid to a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. When I use my spinning reel, I use 20-pound braid to a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. The difference is when you use the spinning reel, you can get a little bit more range with the smaller line. And with it being a moderate action, you're anticipating a little bit more fight to it. So the lighter line, you're going to be fighting it, so you probably won't break off. So you got your bait in the water. You're either picking it up and dropping it, swimming it, you have it in the water, and you're wondering what it's like to get your first bite. So while your bait's in the water, you're going to feel many different things. I'll tell you what, the biggest thing that you're going to feel that isn't a bite is you're going to feel it bump something. Now, when it bumps something, it could be a rock, it could be a tree, it could be a huge thing of grass, it could be all these different things. How to tell if you're bumping something and if it's a bass. So the biggest difference between a bass and between a piece of structure is when you hit structure, you're gonna feel it hit it, and then it's gonna start to get heavy. It's gonna start to get heavy really slow, really slow, really slow, really slow, and then you're either gonna feel it pull through, or it's just gonna get heavy and it's gonna be stuck. With a bass, the thump that you feel, it's like a bang. It's like someone flicked the end of your rod tip. So imagine the end of your rod tip is up here and someone flicks it and you're holding it down here. You're going to feel that vibration all the way down. And then the cool thing about the Texas rig, Senko, is they will hold on to it for a second. So you can literally watch your line and it will start to move side to side if they're swimming. Another thing that's important is when they do bite it, you do want to wait a second to make sure that they actually have the bait, didn't just bite the tail, so that you can set the hook in them. I don't want anyone to get discouraged, because when you do go out for the first time with your Texas rig, Senko, or Wacky rig, you're gonna probably lose a couple of hooks and stuff, because you're gonna think you got a fish and you don't. And that's completely fine. Every single fisherman that has been out there has went through that. That is normal. Expect it to happen. The important thing is that when you get a bite, you want that muscle memory. You want to remember what that feels like, so that next time, you're not getting snagged as much, and you're going to be able to catch those fish every time you get bit. But once you get that thump down and you can identify it and you can set the hook, you're going to be catching bass in no time. It is so much fun. Now, when you buy a pack of Senkos, you're looking at about $7-8 for a pack of these guys. There's other knockoff brands that work just as good. I feel like the Senkos are the GOAT of all the stick baits, just because of the way they were designed. They have salt in them. They seem to give a little bit more action. But if you're fishing on a budget, you can pick up something like these Yum Dingers, and they work great too. In fact, the Yum Dingers are a little bit more durable. They don't get beat up as fast because there's not as much salt, and they will catch you fish. This is the Yum Dinger, just like the Senko, but it's got a different feel. Once you start getting them, you'll be able to tell the difference. There's all these different styles. There's all these different names they've attached to them. I know Strike King has their own. I know Guggen has their own, the Lunker Log, and they really all work. So it's really your preference and what you want to give a try. And sometimes, something just works better for you. So if you go out to your body of water, you're going to want to think about the color that you're using. If it's really dirty water that, it's brown, it's muddy, you can't see really good, you're going to want to use a really bright color. So this is like a bright chartreuse with a bunch of flakes, something that's going to stick out to those fish. You can also use a black or a dark blue. You can use what they call June bug is a great color for really muddy, dark water. Um, you can use white. You want something that's going to stick out underwater. When you get into that clear water, you're going to want to use a clear style bait or a natural looking style bait. So anything green pumpkin, they call it the green pumpkin, anything that mimics a bluegill or a shad. I think the two major colors people use in clear water is green pumpkin and watermelon. These all come with different flakes and color flakes inside of them. It really doesn't matter to me. I do feel like the black flake works the best, but you can also use the red flakes too. I mean, really any kind of flakes in there work. It just depends on the body of water, but as long as the main body of it's green pumpkin, you're gonna catch fish or watermelon. The green pumpkin and the watermelon also work in dirty water too. I feel like the other colors, the bright colors and the dark colors work better, but if all you can afford is a green pumpkin or a watermelon, they will work. They will catch fish. I hope with this advice that you can go out there and you can land some bass with your stick bait, and I hope you have a great time doing it. Once you get it down, it's really going to revolutionize the way you fish. I'll tell you what, it changed my game. It brought a whole lot of fun to it. It really has been something that I enjoy doing. I love. I'm very passionate about. So I hope that if you can get out there and use it, you can become as passionate as I am. I do want to thank everyone for watching today. It's an honor to share my experiences. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feedback, anything like that, always drop it in the description. Drop it in the comments, please. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have yourself a great day. I appreciate you. Take care. We'll see you next time.